Chunking is a method that is used to build your speed over a small section of notes in a situation where maybe trying to play a longer series of notes is impossible or at least very difficult. So for example, if you're someone who's stuck around, let's say 150 or 140 BPM, that's your absolute max. If you were to play across all 6 strings, like 35 notes, something ridiculous, if you want to try and push past that, what you would do is use chunking. Maybe try and play 2, 3, or 4 note sequences at a slightly higher BPM to try and build up that dexterity or just get into the zone or the feeling of what it's like to play at a higher speed. So for example, if my limit is, I'll say 170, which is pretty good, but let's say that's my limit. Pushing pretty hard, trying my hardest, maybe a little bit of tension, and it's getting a little bit sloppy. If I want to try and push past that, maybe I can't bring the entire big scale with me, but if I do something called chunking and I play it a little bit faster and just do the smaller section of notes, maybe I can increase my BPM up to 175 or 180, or potentially even get way up into like 200 and 210 because the sequence that I'm playing is much simpler and much smaller. But anyways, let's get into what the exercise sounds like so you know what we're aiming for. If I was to play it perfectly, it should sound something like this. And then also, of course, I'm going to have the descending as well too. So with this exercise, I'm just playing 3 notes per string and then going to the next string all the way up, and then descending and then repeating. Right here, we're going to be starting at 180 BPM, but the way that it's played, it's going to give me a chance to get into that zone or that feeling of what it's like to play at 180 without the stress of non-stop notes in a very long sequence. So with that being said, let's give it a shot. So the exercise sounds and looks something like that. And you can tell if I'm not playing it 100% perfectly, I'm going to be out of sync or out of unison with the ghost track, if I can call it that. But with this as well too, you'll notice that I'm playing in small groups with like 3 notes. And if I want to increase my BPM, I can try to get to, let's say, 185, 190, 195, and if it starts to really fall apart, then realistically nothing's going to save me, whether I'm chunking or playing single notes or anything. Eventually it's going to be too much for me, at the very least. But while I'm playing this, I'm still trying to do the outside picking or do the string transitions properly versus just doing down picks on every single new string, so that when it is time to play the entire scale at speed, I'm still using the right technique. So let's try it again here. We're going to try and do 190 here. This might be rough, but let's just see what happens. That wasn't too bad. It's a little rough. I feel like on the ascending was not great, but one of the things that's interesting when you practice like this is that yes, we're playing in bursts, but also it's the sudden stop and then sudden full speed acceleration that instantly happens over and over. Because when we're playing, we don't get to really slide in, for lack of a better word, or smoothly transition from slow to fast. If we're playing live or if we're trying to play at 180 BPM or whatever we're playing, we have to go from stopped to instantly fast. And having to do that over and over again, I feel like it does help with my accuracy once I get a little bit warmer. We'll see how it goes, but it helps with the accuracy for sure. And also it helps me pinpoint some weak spots in my own play. For sure, one of the things that I'm noticing right away, and I'm sure you've caught this if you're really listening, is whenever I have to start on an upstroke when I'm descending, it feels so ugly for me. So I know for a fact there's something I have to work on. If I was just playing the full scale all the way through, that's something I might have never caught before. So doing an upstroke, descending, that's where I feel like I need to focus the most. So when we go into this next one, I'm really going to try to nail that on the descend. So let's try it again here. I'm not going to go any faster though. A little bit better, but I'm sure you noticed, you can hear it now, especially now that I've pointed that out. Specifically, and this is just personal for me, I feel like, on the higher strings, that is where I struggle. So the bottom half is pretty clean, higher side, a little bit, not so much. I talked about this in the previous video as well too, that the lower strings have a bit more resilience to sloppy play. Since they're a bit thicker, they ring out a little bit, I guess, larger, a little bit more, they're a little bit more bold with their sound, for lack of a better word. Whereas the top strings, I guess, are thinner, quite literally thinner. So if you make a mistake, or if you have sloppy picking, or if you lift your finger too quickly, you definitely hear that a lot more. So once again, pointing that out in my own play through the use of chunking. Yes, I'm getting my fingers to move fast. Could it be more in sync? Absolutely. Could it be cleaner? Yes. That's why we're practicing. And this is something that you could absolutely add to your own practice routine. So now that I know a little bit more clearly that the upstroke descending is where I am personally having trouble, I could just hyper focus on the top 2 or top 3 strings and try to nail those transitions on the upstrokes and truly try to tackle the exact problem that I'm having versus just kind of mindlessly going up and down the scale over and over again. So we're going to try and do a little bit of target practice, for lack of a better word. So let's try that out. So here I'm just going to be taking the descending top 3 strings in my DAW, so it sounds something like this. And that is what I'm going to focus on for this segment of chunking. Chunking of chunking, basically. And when I'm doing this, what I'm looking for is if it sounds clean, obviously, but how does it sound clean? One of the things that I noticed while I was playing this is that my pinky finger was lifting kind of high, and my index finger, I wasn't pushing down very hard. So the pinky finger, the first little pull off was not bad, but then it got really soft or mushy towards the end of each of those sections of 3 notes. So I tried to correct it a little bit as we were going, and I was trying to play a little bit harder with my fingers here to have some, not tension, because I know we're all afraid of the T word, but more so some attack. I want to be able to attack and have it feel snappy as I go from one fret to the next. So I'm going to try and focus on that as I try this again. And as I'm going through this, I'm adjusting my attack as far as my picking hand and also my fretting hand. Am I pushing too hard? Am I pressing too lightly? These are the things I'm thinking about. Am I trying to play fast? Yes. Am I trying to play in time? Also yes. But how I'm doing it is more, at least in this stage or this phase, is more important than how it actually sounds as far as am I sloppy out of time or not. If I'm perfectly in time, but the notes still sound very mushy or whatever, they don't sound very staccato, they don't feel very assertive, for lack of a better word, then it's still not going to sound good. If you play blazing fast and every single note is in time, but it sounds like crap because it's just so like soft, I suppose, that's not what you want. You want it to sound authoritative. You want it to sound powerful and slice through a mix. If you're always lifting your fingers a little bit earlier, you're getting too much pick sound, or maybe not enough attack, maybe not enough pick sound, because let's say I'm sliding across my pick sideways here because I have too much of an angle or something like that. Those are the corrections that I'm also looking for. It's one thing to play fast, but you also want to play fast and have it actually sound good. So this time when I do the exercise, what I'm going to be focusing on, or trying to focus on, is keeping my pinky finger close to the fretboard, having solid attack with my index finger, not lifting it too early, of course, trying to stay in time, but I'm also going to be taking a look at my camera, at my hand, to see what my angle looks like while I'm playing. Am I playing with my fingers backwards, for example? What I mean by backwards is that the slant of my fingers, if I was to open them up, is this way versus this way, or are they straight on? These are all things that are going to affect the strain on your wrist, and of course also if you're accurate or not. If you think you're landing straight, but you're actually like this, and every single time you go to fret, you're landing on the fret wire, for example, or you're at the back of the fret, and you're squeaking, for example. These are all things that if you're playing with a camera, webcam, or whatever, you should be taking advantage of these resources to say, okay, the reason why it doesn't sound good is not because mentally I'm out of time or I physically not playing fast enough, but my technique right in front of me is visually not good. So let's take a look at that this time. Okay, so I don't think that sounded very good. I know, shocker. But something else I noticed too is that when I'm playing at the bottom with my string, or on my high E string, is that I'm trying to get in the camera at the same time, I feel like I'm slicing with too much of an angle. So rather, I need to bring it back either with my thumb, like this, or rather than having this arc in my thumb, instead of having this, what I can also do too is keep my thumb straight, but bring my wrist up. And if I can't reach, that means I have to come across the strings even more. So when I'm playing up here, I don't have a very mushy pick like this. Rather, it's much more tactile. So I'm looking for this sound, not this. I don't want to slice across like that. So I'm looking for something that sounds like this. If I can do that at 190, then we might be good. So let's see what happens. Even right there, towards the end, as I was starting to think about my pick, I caught my pinky finger going up. And then on the next repetition, I brought it back down, and that last one was actually not too bad. So there's a lot of things to try and, as I've said in the past, put in your backpack as far as things to remember. So eventually it becomes second nature, or autopilot is another way of thinking of it, where you're not really thinking of the angle of your pick, or if your pinky is off the fretboard, or how hard you're picking, or if there's tension in your wrist. It kind of just automatically happens. But you have to go through these steps first and point them out for yourself. And here's the thing, nobody's gonna shoot you straight for you. If you don't sound good, people will just say that you don't sound very good. But as far as how to fix it, that's gonna be on you. So taking these resources or taking these examples as an exercise for yourself is so powerful to do. And so as I'm going through this exercise, I have all these things on a mental checklist, kind of like in the backpack. I'm gonna put a list or something on the screen right here. So these are the things that I'm thinking about. And if one of these things happens to, let's say, fall out of the backpack, or I stop doing it while practicing, I have to ensure that I put it right back in and continue to keep that technique very strict. So if my pinky starts flying and it falls out of the backpack, pay attention to that. Like if you have your camera up, you can physically see, okay, my pinky's flying, bring it back down. Or if I get to have those mushy notes, like I've said in the past, okay, my angle of my pick is starting to go back in the wrong direction. I got to bring it back, stay tactile, and then try to keep it all in the backpack. And so with all that being said, let's try and do it again with everything in the backpack, if I can say that. Okay, and so at this point, without getting too scientific, because honestly, I'm not that guy. Sometimes I talk about the science stuff. I don't really know what I'm saying. I've read some stuff, and hopefully I'm not completely wrong. But essentially for the non-science people, just like myself, I'm trying to build muscle memory so it feels right to be playing at a certain speed. Not that it necessarily sounds right, but it feels right. And if it does feel right, then it probably also sounds right. If it feels like my thumb is a little bit off, or my pinky's a little bit high, or my thumb position is in one direction or the other, which is something we haven't even talked about yet as far as having my thumb way back here, or if it's up over the neck like this, or I've talked about our fingers being backwards or whatever. Just all these little things. I'm trying to build the muscle memory so that when it sounds 100% correct for me, based on the ghost track, playing in time, my pinky is not flying, my pick sounds tactile and has strong attack so you can really hear all the notes, my index finger is not mushy. If I'm doing all of those things and it sounds quite good, then at least for me, I've now graduated doing this particular exercise at 190, and I could try 195, or I could even try 200 until those things break again. All right, now let's try the entire thing at 190 before we decide to go crazy here. Not bad. Not perfect, but definitely not bad. I could feel myself really paying attention. Okay, as I get to the top here, remember to make sure that you're not slicing too aggressively, not having my pick too perpendicular to the strings. Also, make sure I have some attack with my index finger so it sounds pretty clean on that last note. And if you go back to the beginning of the video when I first tried this, I think I was at like 180. It should sound at least a little bit better than it did before. Also a little bit faster as well too. So now let's try this again. I feel like I have everything that I need as far as mentally to make sure that I stay clean, everything I'm thinking about. So let's try going up just for fun. We're so close. Let's just do the 200. So something I just noticed there towards the end is that since there are pauses, and this is something that I have to try and smooth out for sure, is once I get to the very top and I have that small break before descending, I was adjusting from this to this. So that's something that I have to be aware of, to not wait for a pause, but rather do it while playing. Because if I was going to play through the entire scale, I don't have time to do that pause. I can't stop for a second, fix it, and then continue on. It does sound clean, the chunking is working, but once again, pointing out these small things. So how do I play smooth across all the strings and do that transition? Something to be aware of. Not impossible, but that's where things would fall apart as far as, I thought I could play at 190, what happened? It's like, oh, well, that happened, or 200 at this point. That small pause does make a huge difference. Now let's try the entire thing at 200. This is something I've never done before, so this could be cut from the video, let's put it that way. All right. I'm like one note behind the entire time. That's why it sounds almost like it's harmonizing. I think I could get it. I think if I just sat here, and I know I'm not gonna make the video an hour long, but if I sat here for another 40 minutes or so, and I really just focused here and just went full Neanderthal mode, I think I could get this, which is something I've never been able to do yet. Yes, the chunking absolutely did help, but not for the reason that you might think. Not because, yes, it slowed it down and allowed me to play a smaller group of notes faster, sure. But paying attention to my form, something I'm catching myself doing now, which I feel like is better as far as staying with that strong attack on the high strings, is when I get to the end, I am bringing my thumb down to try and stay smooth and have the attack with the pick versus going this way and slicing. So at the very least, from this small practice session, this has been a huge eye-opener for me, and hopefully if you were to do the same idea with whatever scales you're using, it doesn't have to be 3 notes per string, but just breaking it down and really dissecting it line by line or note by note in the way that I did, really paying attention to the form, there's no way that you can't blast through your goals. Because at this point, like I said, in the last four months at least, maybe 5 months, I have not even tried 200. And I'm not going to sit here and say that that was good, but it was at least something. And now I have something to strive for. So I'm going to try it again. Let's see how it goes. It's definitely still sloppy. I felt like on the second to last one, I was falling behind. The last one, I definitely tried to stay on beat or with the ghost track. But my God, I would say at the end of this, I cannot play at 200. I'm not going to troll and say I did a good job, but I got to see what it felt like, and I got to see how far away I actually am. So, at least for me, as far as a practice session goes, this would be a win. I would not continue to practice at 200 and think, now I'm going to 210 anytime soon, because I don't think I even have 200. But the chunking 100% did help. And hopefully, if you add it to your practice routine, like I had mentioned before, it will be able to help you too. And like I had mentioned, with regards to having the mushy index finger on the high strings, I actually fixed that problem by adding tension to my playing. Not strain, but tension, to have more attack. And that's why I made this video talking about if you're playing with no tension, that's probably one of the main reasons why you're not reaching your speed goals. So if you want some help with that, I check this out.